What's up, y'all? You're listening to another season of the My Aggie Nation podcast. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by Robert Cessna. We've had a little bit of a summer hiatus, but football season is right around the corner. And we're kicking it off with a little bit of a season preview episode. Cease, you doing all right today?
Can't complain. Had a little bout last week with something, but I'm glad I got that out before the season. Get the kinks out before the UTSA hits town.
Well, the Aggies are hoping that they've been able to get some kinks out on the practice field. We've been out to practice a good amount. Well, I have at least.
You have.
You went your one.
I was there in spirit.
You were there in spirit. But we've also talked with a lot of players, actually, this fall camp, which has been really nice from our vantage point, getting to know some guys and hear about different things and position groups. Cease, is there anything that's stood out to you the most about this preseason camp?
Well, just the expectations are high. Last year you go in after the Jimbo era, you don't know what it's 25 transfers, you don't know what you're going to get. You can really say in retrospect they overachieved. Even though I don't like their schedule this year, I think there's a lot of expectations. I feel the team feels confident. Last year at this time, I don't know if they felt they would start 7-1. I don't think that was probably in the cards. But I just think you've got, and Elko talks about this, they know what they're doing. Everybody knows where they've been. A lot of players back. You got 15 or 16 starters back, depending which one you want to go with. So they know what's going on.
Well, for me, I think the thing that's jumped out to me is how much these offensive players have talked about how explosive the offense has been in practice and how explosive they anticipate it to be during the season, because what was one thing that held A&M back last year? They struggled with explosive plays, especially in the passing game. And so guys like KC Concepcion and Mario Craver and Ashton Bethel-Roman emerging as kind of what they hope is a home run threat. And Marcel Reed, they swear he's a passer. We're going to find out, but they swear by it. And so I think, to me, I'm really curious, okay, they keep talking this up. What's it actually going to look like once they get on the field and get to showcase what's going on? We know the veteran O-line is there. We know what A&M's capable at running back. We've seen glimpses of goodness from Reed. How improved is this receiver room, I think, and the tight ends, who they've really overhauled this room. How much can those guys help take this offense to the next level?
I still have a lot of questions, because while the offensive line to me is a strength, I still don't know how much of a strength it is. Are we going to talk about them having 2 first-team all-conference offensive linemen or no first-team? And I think there's a big difference, because the Georgias of the world, the Alabamas of the world, the Texas of the world last year did have first-teamers. And so while the offensive line is good, will it take one more step?
Well, a lot of discussion over the last month has been about Marcel Reed and his passing ability. What do you make of that? What have you seen from Marcel in the past, and what we've heard about this offseason and seen glimpses of in practice that gives you a read on Mr. Reed?
I think at this point, I don't know anything, because I think, once again, is until he plays 12 games for me, until he goes out there and takes control, till he shows me he can throw and run against a quality opponent. Last year at this time, we're saying the things about Connor Wegman. And how'd that work out? That didn't work out well.
We said the same things about Haynes King.
So I don't be a doom and gloom, but until he does that, until he goes that he can prove that, he hasn't done that yet. He has, so many of these guys are quarterbacks or dual threats. They look so good in practice because they're not allowed to be hit. They don't have to worry about getting up and go on to the next play. We don't know what they're going to have until they play some more games. You got to have a dual threat these days, unless you have somebody like Nussmauer at LSU that just can light it up. He looks like he should be better. He appears to be better. There's no doubt he's a better leader from what he comes in and talks to us. But once again, I'm a little bit of Missouri. Show me.
Well, that's a fair assessment. I think there's no doubt he's gotten every vote of confidence from his teammates. Everyone who has talked about Marcel speaks very highly of him. which is what you want to hear from guys about a team's quarterback, right? I think that with Marcel, it's kind of a microcosm of this team, in my opinion, is that there is a lot of potential on this team, but they really have to go prove it. There is a lot of unproven potential within this team that could either catapult them into having a college football playoff run or another 8-4 type season. And so I think that we will learn very quickly and what this A&M team is made of, and we'll get to that in a minute. I do think what's good for A&M, they should handle business against UTSA and Utah State. They should win those games. And, you know, I don't want to say you take those games lightly, but you get a couple tune-ups before you go on the road and play Notre Dame in what's going to be a very marquee matchup, as it was last year to start the season.
Well, without a doubt, is they're going to take care of business. How easily do they take care of business? I think that's a key because UTSA, their quarterback, he is in all the watch lists. So, I mean, obviously he can come out and get hot. And we know it's hard to get to any quarterback these days because 1, 2, 3, throw the ball. If he's got 1 or 2 good receivers, he's going to be able to move the ball. So you can't say that A&M's going to hang 50 on UTSA. UTSA is going to be somewhat competitive, but once again, yet it's going to give us a good chance to measure because if A&M is who they are, the game should be over after 3.5 quarters.
Okay, give me one player on each side of the ball that needs to step up in a big way for the Aggies for them to have a successful season.
Well, I'm going to pick Concepcion only because I've heard so much about him. To me, he's got to be who he is so that maybe defenses have to double team him, which frees up the tight ends or the wide receivers. Because if Concepcion, to me, doesn't have a big year, we'll be back with A&M the way they were last year, where Thomas was good, but he really wasn't good enough. The offense wasn't good enough. So you had all these problems because A&M wasn't an explosive offense. And you got to have explosive plays in today's college football. So I've seen him. He's got good hands. He looked good in the spring game. But will he look good come South Bend time?
How about on the defense?
Defense, somebody to me has to come up between the defensive line or the linebacker to go ahead. They got to put more pressure on the quarterback. And I might even pick Torian York as someone because Torian York, depending on what's funny is you look at the preseason teams, he's All-American on some, but then he's the third-team linebacker in the SEC because that's how deep this league is. Somebody on that defensive line or linebackers needs to be a first-team player in the SEC in the first 7 to step up. So, defensive line, does Cassius Howe come up or someone? Probably not. So maybe I'm going to pick York. He needs to be a first-teamer to go ahead and make everything else fall in place. What about you?
I think for me, on offense, I'm going to go with Le'Veon Moss. Moss was having an incredible season last year before he got hurt. He was going to be the SEC's rushing champion. I'm curious how he handles things coming off that injury. That was a pretty significant injury, and he is a guy that he has that first team All-SEC, All-American type potential, and he is a guy that A&M missed sorely down the stretch in losses to Auburn and Texas and USC. Yeah, 4th and 1, exactly. They need that guy to show up in the big moments and get them that 1 yard that gets them over the hump. I always think back to I think back to when Jimbo was on the rise, and they lost to Georgia by like 6 in the rain over in Athens, and he kept talking about the last 2%, like
inches,
the last 2 inches. And at the time, the metaphor made sense. Later, we would joke about Jimbo saying they need to find the inches. Yeah. But at the time, the metaphor made sense. A&M is getting closer to finding those last 2 inches. And a guy like Le'Veon Moss, I think, is the kind of guy that can help them get over that hump, along with a guy like Concepcion. The other caveat is A&M needs Reed to play the whole season. A&M has not had a quarterback start and finish the season since Kellen Mond did in 2020. We saw how that played out for the Aggies. It played out pretty well. Reed's got a lot of potential. He's got the leadership. Can he stay healthy and have A&M get some good fortune with quarterback health this season. On the defensive side, Howell was going to be my guy. I think another guy though is whoever is the other cornerback opposite of Will Lee has got to step up, whether that is Des Ricks or Julio Humphrey or somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
They need the pass defense to be better. We have beaten the horse dead and more about A&M's pass defense this offseason. And so it's time for them to show up and show how much they have actually improved and grown this offseason. And it starts with that key position with the field corner.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things. Because I would even go, believe it or not, I think A&M needs to be a little better in run defense. Because once again, if you're better in run defense, then you put them in passing. Last year, A&M was so suspect against the run. Offenses had their chance. Pick. Do you want to run? Do you want to pass? All options were open. A&M needs to make offenses one-dimensional, and they didn't do it a lot of times in the big games.
Shameless plug, I got a feature on defensive tackle Tyler Onyedem coming in Saturday's paper, so
There
be
you
sure to read that online.
There.
Cease, you mentioned how you don't like A&M's schedule. Why is that? And give me one game on the schedule that's going to be a good litmus test for this A&M team.
Well, I'll go right off the bat Notre Dame, because Notre Dame is, to me, in a great situation. They're going to open up Miami. They might go down there and lose. I mean, they got a new quarterback. You go on the road. We all know how tough it is to go on the road. If they would go down there and lose the ball game, they're going to come back and be very focused, have a week off to prepare for A&M. They're in a great situation because they're going to know what they have. A&M's not going to really know what they have until they get to South Bend. And that's why, last year I thought it was a good game, even though A&M lost and they won 7 games. So I think South Bend is going to be another one because A&M's going to have to win on the road. If A&M's going to be a successful team this year, you got to go to Arkansas, you got to go to Missouri, you got to go to LSU, you got to go to Texas. Those are tough places to play.
Arkansas.
In Arkansas,
they're going to be fired up to have A&M there for the first time in a while.
Arkansas might be the kind of game where Pittman needs to win to save his job. So we're getting ahead of ourselves. But A&M, what haven't they done since they joined the SEC other than Johnny? They haven't won a lot of big games on the road consistently, and they're going to have to win consistently because you got to go at least 2-3 in those games to have any kind of chance. And you hopefully you go 3-2, but we'll see what happens. Those are 5 tough road games. And I'll start with the first one. You can't win them all unless you win the first one.
Yeah, I think I read a stat somewhere that A&M hasn't beaten a ranked opponent on the road since 2014 when they beat Auburn.
That is correct.
It's a long time.
It's a long time, and they'll have chances this year.
Well, and, the thing going into last year was A&M hadn't won a road game in like 2 years. And Elko was when they went to Florida, he brought up the fact and knew how long the streak was down to the day. And so my guess is that he is probably pretty aware that A&M has not won a road game against a ranked opponent in such time as well.
Long time. So once again, the schedule is not very favorable, but once again, good teams find a way to win on the road.
That's true. Good teams also find a way to win the games they should. My game that I think is a good litmus test is the Auburn game, A&M's conference opener. And here's why. Look, in my opinion, you are still very much in the hunt for the playoff if you lose to Notre Dame. There's probably no shame in losing a close game on the road to Notre Dame, who's probably going to end up being a pretty decent team. They have a lot of question marks. Mm-hmm. They've also got a really good run game that A&M's going to have to prepare for. But the Irish are probably going to be the favorites going into that game. But A&M's going to have a bye week between that one and the conference opener against Auburn, which is at home, a team that beat A&M last year in just a ridiculous game, quite frankly. Auburn's got a lot of question marks. They've also got a lot of reason to think that they're going to be better this year. But they've also got a lot of question marks, like who's actually calling plays and how many quarterbacks are they actually going to play. So A&M needs to take care of business in the games that it probably should win, and that includes a game at home against Auburn.
Well, you're right. If I had to pick other games, Auburn and Florida are going to be big for me because you got to protect home. What hasn't A&M done since they last won a conference title. They haven't been able to go on the road and break even against ranked teams or big games, and they haven't been able to dominate home. The only time they really won all the games at home that mattered was with Mon, and they were unbeaten at home that year. You go unbeaten at home, you got a good chance to have a really good year. But like you said, if they split between Auburn, let's say, and Florida, you lose one of those games, then you got to pick that up on the road because you're not going to sweep those 5 road games. If they are, wow, A&M has turned the corner, but they're probably going to lose at least 2. So suddenly you lose a game at home, then you may be in trouble on the road. So it's the beauty of college football and the SEC. If you're not ready, I think other than Mississippi State, maybe in Kentucky, just about anybody can beat you this year, and they can.
Well, give me your season record prediction as you've continued to fill out your preseason stuff.
Folks are not going to like it, but I'm going to go 8-4 because I think they could be 8-4 and be better than they were last year, maybe even much better, just because of the schedule. Because I think so many teams that they play are going to be better. By the time they play Texas, and LSU, those are going to be 2 water moccasin games on the road. And then right off the bat, your first big test on the road, that's tough. Any of those teams can beat you. Arkansas can beat you. Even Auburn can beat you if they're transfers. Everybody's got these transfers. A&M loves their transfers. Guess what? Everybody else loves their transfers too. So there's no really rebuilding. Everybody reloads. It's how do you reload? So I'm going to say I'm going to buy low at 8-4. A&M gets one. You're 9-3. Then you're in good shape. So they need to win one of those swing games.
I'm going to go 9-3. I don't know. That might be a little too optimistic. But look, A&M's got the pieces. They've got the potential. I've got a lot more question marks about some of these other teams that they're going to play. There are big question marks about Notre Dame. There's a lot of reports out there that C.J. Carr did not perform that well in preseason practice. Florida's got question marks. DJ Lagway's got to stay healthy. Auburn, we all know, has question marks. Missouri is likely to take a step back, but they've got a guy, you mentioned transfers, Ahmad Hardy, who could be the truth at running back and could pose A&M some problems.
They've got a lot of good transfers. When you look at, I was impressed when I studied their transfers, but that's asking for a lot of transfers.
That is asking for a lot.
And we saw for A&M last year, it can work for a while, but man, it's tough.
It can catch up to you.
When you got to rely on transfers for a 12-game schedule, it's tough.
Arkansas, I just have little faith in them. I have very little faith in Arkansas. Mississippi State, even less.
Oh, Mississippi State, that's...
if A&M loses to Mississippi State, things have gone off the rails.
Mississippi State, woo. I feel for that coach in that program because, once again, money can't buy you a conference championship, but money can buy you an average team, and Mississippi State can't even buy that right now.
In South Carolina, look, I know they've got Sellers. I know they've got a really good receiver.
I know you mentioned South Carolina. I forgot about that.
And they've got the defensive end, but they lost a lot on that team last year. And Sellers is going to have to find guys to step up and provide. LSU's got question marks on the offensive line, and Nussmeier's got the knee thing with tendonitis. And I know they say it's not a big deal, but once you get something going, it can spiral pretty quickly.
This is not a league to play backup quarterbacks. I don't care who you are. If you got to go to your second quarterback these days, just because it's hard to get a championship, have a championship caliber quarterback ready because of transfer portal. A&M likes their guy. I get it. To me, he's serviceable. Zeno, right?
Zeno and O'Neal.
I think they're serviceable. They're not a championship type quarterback. That's why they are who they are. I don't care who you are. You lose your starting quarterback, like you mentioned. If I don't care who you are. If you're Arkansas, you're Florida, you lose your starting quarterback, you're in trouble.
Yeah, speaking of the backup quarterback, I mean, I'm sure Elko would like us to knock on wood for him, but look, A&M's had to play a backup quarterback at least one, if not multiple, each of the last 4 seasons. It's going to be interesting to see if A&M has to get into that kind of situation, how they would handle it. You've got a guy in O'Neal that he seems to be probably the clear-cut backup, But then you brought in the veteran Zeno, who has all the experience and he's played quite a bit. I'm kind of wondering, say if Reed went down in the middle of the game, if Zeno would be the guy who finishes out the game, but O'Neal would be the guy moving forward once he has a week to prepare for practice, considering he is the guy of the future as the younger guy behind Reed. Or if Reed went down in the middle of the week of practice, I would. This is my guess. This is the Alex Miller take. I would probably expect O'Neal to play if he had a couple days to prepare. That's just my intuition.
Yeah, here's the deal: is when people use a dual threat quarterback, you're just one play from a twisted ankle, from a concussion, a hard hit away from having a guy in there, and a lot of times those quarterbacks make a great play and they get hurt. That's why they get hurt, because they're out on an island and they get hit or what have you. So you've got to have your backup ready, and you never know in your seasons. And that's why a lot of coaches hold their breath when they see a guy coming out, and then you see a 6'5", 250 edge rusher ready to level him, and you go like, whoa.
And then, of course, the one team we haven't mentioned, Big Bad Texas. The Longhorns. Yeah. Are you buying the Arch Manning hype?
Well, when he come in against A&M, just one or two plays, he looked like he could handle it. His lineage says he will handle it, and Texas has a lot of good people to fill the holes they've had. They're right where Georgia is. Georgia just kind of reloads. That's where you want to get, and they're there. And of course, A&M plays them. It's a rivalry game, anything can happen, but Texas will have the kinks worked out, just like A&M will. That's just a different animal when you're playing your rival for the last game. And we forgot to mention, Alex, one good thing that A&M does, they do have special teams. And they have good special teams, and that's you get down to a 3-point game, and A&M's got a good punter, a good place kicker, and some of the teams don't have that. Like South Carolina is breaking in new punters and new field goal, or when they got them in transfer portal. That's not a good way to be.
No, it's not. That almost cost Auburn the game last year when A&M tried to come back and beat them.
Yeah.
And it cost Arkansas a couple years ago in the good old oink doink.
Doink doink. So you got to have good special teams, because everybody's going to play about 4 or 5 games within one score.
All right, tell me this. A&M can reach the college football playoff if
they stay healthy. Because I think that's a lot of positions, because we've seen last year A&M lost a secondary person. Passing game goes down. They lose a running back. They can't pick up 4th and 1. Their quarterback never got off the ground, so to speak, because he was hurt. A&M had a lot of injuries, but, it's football. I mean, you're going to have injuries. And the teams that have no injuries, it's amazing how successful they are.
You think about 2012 A&M, they stayed pretty dang healthy. You think about 2020 A&M, they stayed pretty dang healthy. They stayed healthy, and that's something you have no control over a lot of times. And I can remember one year A&M R.C. Slocum was converting offensive tackles to tight ends because he lost like his 3 top tight ends. I don't care. You have injuries, it's tough to overcome sometimes. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode of the My Aggie Nation podcast. Be sure to check Saturday's edition of The Eagle to find all of our season preview content. We're going to have quite a bit, I think, which is good for the reader.
If we get out of here, yeah.
If we get out of here. Thank you, Cease. Hey, we'll be back next week breaking down Texas A&M season opener against UTSA. Until then, we'll see ya.